a forgotten king, born part god and part man, once ruled with unmatched strength and unbearable arrogance. His people cried out, and the gods answered, not with punishment but with a rival. What followed was a story of friendship, loss, and a desperate search for eternal life. In this video, the oldest story ever written returns to life. Before myths had names, before heroes wore crowns, there was Gilgamesh. Let's journey back nearly 5 millennia to the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. Today, it's modern-day Iraq, but back then, it was the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, home to powerful cities like Uruk, Ur, and Babylon. One of these cities, Uruk, was ruled by a man named Gilgamesh. Historians believe Gilgamesh may have been a real king who reigned around 2700 BCE. But over time, tales of his deeds became legend. Myths grew around his name, and those myths were eventually written down in cuneiform script on sun-baked tablets. This is how the Epic of Gilgamesh was born. In the story, Gilgamesh is described as 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, a powerful warrior king whose strength was unmatched. But with great power came great arrogance. He ruled Uruk with an iron fist. The people cried out to the gods, begging for relief from their oppressive king. And so the gods answered, not by punishing Gilgamesh, but by creating his equal. From clay, they molded a wild man named Enkidu. He was strong, fearless, and untamed, living with animals in the wilderness. Enkidu's transformation from beast to man begins when a temple priestess named Shamhat seduces him and introduces him to human customs, clothing, food, drink, and civilization itself. Slowly, Enkidu becomes more human and less beast. Word of his strength spreads, and Gilgamesh hears of this wild man who might finally be a match for him. The two eventually meet, and what starts as a fierce battle ends in an unexpected friendship. It's one of the first recorded examples in literature of two enemies becoming allies. Their bond is deep, like brothers. Together, they decide to prove themselves by undertaking a dangerous quest. Their first challenge? Humbaba, the terrifying guardian of the cedar forest, appointed by the god Enlil. Gilgamesh and Enkidu march into the forest, axes in hand, hearts full of courage. Humbaba is no ordinary foe. He's said to breathe fire, his roar like a flood. The battle is brutal. Gilgamesh hesitates, but Enkidu urges him on. Finally, they slay Humbaba and cut down the sacred cedar trees. This act angers the gods, and that's where the real tragedy begins. When they return to Uruk, the goddess Ishtar, taken by Gilgamesh's beauty, offers herself to him. But Gilgamesh refuses, reminding her of how she's destroyed all her past lovers. Furious and humiliated, Ishtar calls upon her father, the god Anu, to send the bull of heaven as punishment. The beast descends on Uruk, bringing famine and death. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu, once again, rise to the challenge and kill the bull. Their victory is short-lived. The gods are enraged. Two mortals have killed divine creatures, and now justice must be served. Enkidu falls ill. As he lies dying, he curses the gods, the priestess who brought him to civilization, and even the very gates of Uruk. But eventually, he accepts his fate. Gilgamesh, who once feared no man, now trembles at the sight of death. His grief is unbearable. Enkidu's death breaks something inside him. From this moment, the epic shifts from action to introspection. Gilgamesh can't accept death, not Enkidu's and not his own. He sets out on a journey to find Utnapishtim, the only mortal granted eternal life by the gods. Gilgamesh crosses deserts, climbs mountains, and sails through the waters of death. He faces scorpion men, sleep trials, and despair. He's no longer the arrogant king of Uruk. He's a man desperate to outrun the inevitable. When Gilgamesh finally reaches Utnapishtim, he hears a story that sounds eerily familiar. Utnapishtim tells him how the gods once sent a great flood to wipe out humanity. But the god Ea warned him in time, allowing Utnapishtim to build a massive boat and save life, man, animal, and seed. It's a story that predates Noah's Ark, but follows a strikingly similar plot. For surviving the flood, the gods granted Utnapishtim and his wife immortality. But he tells Gilgamesh that the gift was a one-time deal. Immortality is not for everyone. Still, Utnapishtim gives Gilgamesh a final chance. If he can stay awake for 7 nights, he'll prove he's worthy. Gilgamesh tries. He fails. The old man smiles. Even the strongest man on earth can't resist sleep, let alone death. Gilgamesh begs for something, anything, to take home. So Utnapishtim tells him of a secret plant at the bottom of the sea that can restore youth. With new hope, Gilgamesh retrieves the plant and begins his journey back. But he never gets to use it. One night, while bathing, a serpent steals the plant and slithers away. In an instant, Gilgamesh's dream of defeating death is gone. He returns to Uruk empty-handed, but wiser. In the final lines of the epic, Gilgamesh stands atop the city walls of Uruk, looking out at what he built. He may not have found immortality, but he realizes that his true legacy is the city, its people, and the story that will outlive him. That is the message of the Epic of Gilgamesh. You can't defeat death, but you can live in a way that your memory endures. What makes this story so powerful is how human it is. Despite the gods, monsters, and magical journeys, at its heart, it's about loss, grief, and the fear of death. It's about friendship, failure, and finding meaning in the face of mortality. These are things we all face even today. That's why the Epic of Gilgamesh, though written thousands of years ago, still resonates. But here's something even more fascinating. The story was lost for centuries. The tablets that held the epic were buried in the ruins of Nineveh, in the great library of King Ashurbanipal. It wasn't until the mid-1800s that archaeologists uncovered the tablets. And when scholars began translating the cuneiform script, they were stunned. The flood myth, the heroic journey, the questions about life and death. It wasn't just history, it was humanity speaking from the dawn of civilization. The Epic of Gilgamesh gives us a window into the minds of our ancestors. They too wondered what comes after death. They too mourned lost friends. They too dreamed of becoming legends. And they wrote it down, so we'd never forget. Gilgamesh begins as a tyrant and ends as a man transformed. His journey isn't just across distant lands, it's an emotional and spiritual transformation. He learns humility. He learns sorrow. And most importantly, he learns that even if we can't live forever, we can create things that do. There are also fascinating parallels to later religious texts. Scholars believe that parts of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, were influenced by Mesopotamian myths. The flood story in Genesis, the themes of divine punishment, the search for wisdom, all these echoes suggest that Gilgamesh's story shaped much of the world's spiritual literature. Today, parts of the Epic of Gilgamesh survive on 12 clay tablets, many of which are broken or incomplete. Tablet 5, which describes the battle with Humbaba in the cedar forest, was only partially known until a missing fragment was discovered in 2015. Every time new fragments are found, we get closer to understanding the full story. Yet even in its broken form, the epic remains hauntingly complete. In a world obsessed with youth and permanence, the Epic of Gilgamesh offers a sobering but beautiful truth that the most heroic thing you can do is to accept your mortality and live a life worth remembering. So the next time you hear about a powerful hero, a grand quest, a loyal friendship, or the search for eternal life, remember, Gilgamesh did it first. Before Achilles, before Odysseus, before Moses or King Arthur, there was Gilgamesh. And he was very much like us. He didn't find eternal life, but he found something greater, a legacy etched in stone, carried by time, and still spoken of thousands of years later. The man who challenged death became immortal not through the gods, but through memory. His city still stands in words. His pain, his journey, his truth, they're still ours. The story ends, but Gilgamesh endures. If you found this story as timeless as we did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more legends that shape the world.